In this video, I'm sharing with you the 6 rules of entrepreneurship that I have learned over the last 10 years of being an entrepreneur. If you haven't already, check out this video here, which talks about the 4 myths of entrepreneurship. And this particular video, I'm really excited to share with you the rules of the game of business. So let's get started. Hi and welcome to the Elevated Entrepreneur YouTube channel. My name is Dhiren Bhatia. I'm the host of this YouTube channel as well as the Elevated Entrepreneur podcast. And on the podcast and on this show, I talk to tech consultants and coaches and I help them elevate their productivity, mindset, and systems so they too can become better entrepreneurs and escape the hustle culture. Let's get started with rule number 1, and that is that business is an infinite game. Now, if you haven't heard about this infinite game concept, it's from the game theory and popularized by Simon Sinek in his book by the same name and his videos on YouTube. I'll make sure to link his most popular TEDx video on this topic down below. Let's quickly talk about the difference between a finite game and an infinite game. And a good way to do that is with an example. Football or soccer is a really good example of a finite game. 11 players, 2 teams, and one shared objective to win the match by scoring the most number of goals. However, in an infinite game, there's no rule. There are no players that are going to win or lose, merely players that are either ahead or behind, but never ever winners or losers. I think that's a really important lesson to take away because we're bombarded with this idea of the hustle culture. Hustle every day, hustle till you make it. There are so many versions of this, and I think those are all garbage because as entrepreneurs, it's really important to remember that there's nobody that we are competing with. And the game of business is a really good example of that. The game of business has been played for eons and centuries before you and I, and will continue to be played after you and I. We as entrepreneurs need to remember that we're in an infinite game. Now, what this means to us as entrepreneurs, consultants, and coaches is that this game is a game in which we're not competing with anybody. There are no winners and losers. The only people that we are competing with is ourselves. The goal of an infinite game isn't to crush the competition, but to be a better version of ourselves, to make our business a better version of itself compared to yesterday or compared to the week before. Remember, you're not here to lose this game. You're here to continue playing the game. A really good example that Simon Sinek uses is his example of Microsoft and Apple. Back in the day, when Apple had launched a very successful device called the iPod, Microsoft quickly started competing and came out with their own version of it called the Zune. And because it was purely out of competition, what ended up happening was that Microsoft was playing the finite game. They were creating products out of competition and trying to win the game. Whereas Apple, on the other hand, was playing the infinite game. So they really weren't bothered when the Zune was released. And we all know what happened. The iPod continued to become a successful product, one for the ages, and the Zune died a tragic death. Rule number 2, stop watching the clock. Don't set a hard time limit on success. And remember, don't compare yourselves to anybody else. Our business journeys are vastly different from each other, which is why it's important to remember to not focus on the distance, but the progress. Don't set your eyes too hard on the finish line. Remember the progress that you're making day over day, month over month, and all of the knowledge that you're learning along the way. This is something that we always need to remind ourselves of, not having to keep up with somebody else. This is a very simple game to be playing. And the last point I want to make on this rule, don't pressure yourself to compete with somebody else. Rule number 3, focus on the small steps within your control. Oftentimes, us as entrepreneurs are either stuck in the past thinking about all the things that should have happened, or we're too far out in the future thinking about the things that we need to do. But as entrepreneurs, we need to focus on today. We need to be here, present, and mindful of what are the things that you can do today. What do you as an entrepreneur need to do right now to become slightly better, to become better than yesterday? What's that one next step that you need to take to become more successful? You're probably not going to get to 1 million subscribers on YouTube by just setting the goal, but you are going to get closer to that 1 subscriber if you put out your next video today. So what are some of the things or steps that you can take today, tomorrow, to become better versions of yourself and to make your business a better version of itself? Rule number 4 is stay in create mode. I want you to think about the time when you started your business, or the last time that you were head down, hands on keyboard, creating in your business, whether that was a document a new product, finding your first new customer, creating a sales process. All of those steps, all of those things are where your zone of geniuses lie. So remember, as entrepreneurs, it is very important that we're always in create mode. And sure, sometimes we lose that ability. We get out of create mode because we're too stressed about sales or people or money. But remember, if you go back into create mode, you are going to be delivering value. Rule number 5, and this is my favorite, ask for help. As entrepreneurs, sometimes we get carried away with this idea that entrepreneurs don't ask for help, or we feel ashamed or shy of asking for help. And I'm here to remind you that as entrepreneurs, the one thing that we can do is put our hand up and ask for help. I did something like this 5 years ago when I hired my business coach. Hands down, it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. So who can you ask for help? Whether it's a friend, a mentor, or even a family member. Because when you ask for help, you get shared perspectives, you get an alternative idea, you get an alternate version of the reality. So remember, if you're stuck, if you're not sure what to do next, put your hand up, ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help because there is already someone ahead of you who's figured this out. So why do we want to reinvent the wheel? And the last rule is celebrate fast and celebrate often. As entrepreneurs, we forget to celebrate. Why? Because we're always chasing the next big thing. And big is very subjective. Big for you could be very different from me. So remember, whatever progress you're making, celebrate fast, celebrate often, celebrate with your team, whether it's going out for a small dinner, a coffee, or even just buying yourself something that you like. Remember to celebrate the small successes so that when you get to the big stuff, it doesn't feel like the big stuff. It feels like another step in your journey. So celebrate fast and celebrate often. I hope that you enjoyed these 6 rules. If you feel that there are rules that you have learned and you want to share, please make sure you put them down in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you check out this playlist here wherein I share with you the top sales tips and tricks that you can use in your business to become better at sales.